Well, many law enforcement officers throwing their support behind Trump, including in the battleground state of Michigan.
And that's where Lawrence is joining us from Allendale, along with Jim Tiganelli from the Michigan Police Union. Hey, guys.
Hey, good morning, family. Let's bring Jim in. Jim, you decided to endorse a former president.
I did.
Why, and what's been the reaction so far?
Well, the reaction from our members and from law enforcement community in general has been very positive. And, this is the first time I've been voting for president for 50 years, more than that. And this is the first time we've had the two candidates that have both served in the office. So you never had an apple comparison before today.
Was it a hard decision to make?
No, it was not. It was not, because the open border is critical to public safety, and that's what our business is public safety. Our guys are getting beat up. People are getting beat up. We're losing the fight. Even Director Wray says it's the most dangerous time he's seen in his career. And so, to me, the open border, when I look back at the 4 years President Trump was there, we had Remain in Mexico, we had Title 42, we had, the Mexican government blocking the border. Now we have a president that sues the state of Texas for guarding the border. We have guys getting money, accommodations, education, and transportation around the country for free by coming in. Who would stay home?
You guys were going on the offense, and that's since changed. Yeah. Jim, thanks so much for talking with me this morning.
My pleasure.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you for being here.
Let's go talk with some diners before we leave Michigan. Sir, you served this country. What would you say is the number one issue facing this country right now?
I think the number one issue is definitely the border. We have an issue. Michigan is fourth in the nation for accepting illegal immigrants and people breaking the law to come here. And it's important to me. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. My wife's a Marine. My daughter's currently serving in the Marine Corps. And we got to get back and stand up for the things that are right. And that's why I'm personally decided to run for Michigan State House of Representatives, because we need people to fight. We shouldn't have kids on our college campuses chanting death to America, especially under a flag that gives them the right to be here and to go to school. And so
I wouldn't mess with the Marines, sir. Thank you for your service. We got a young guy over here. What's up, brother?
How you doing, Brett? Nice to meet you.
So, Brett, what's the number one issue facing this country today?
I would think just people not appreciating everything that came before them. If you don't want to be here, go move somewhere else. And I would say just appreciate and cherish the freedom that you have in the United States.
When you see these kids out here protesting, saying death to America, Hamas flag, what runs through your mind?
It kind of makes me mad, to be honest. Everything that we've been given throughout our lives, it's just how can you not be thankful for what we have? You go to a different country and you'll get pushed away in a second. So it's kind of be thankful for what you have here, be where your feet are type of thing, and be thankful for the people that came before you.
Why are you proud to be American?
I'm proud to be an American because I got freedom, so.
I mean, it's just that simple. When you got the young guys saying it's about freedom. Remember, guys, this is where that chant, Death to America, was brought. You got young people that are responding to it and saying they're for freedom, guys. I'll send it back to you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence.
Wow.
That's NYU.
I'll have to speak fast.
We have the cutest next guest for you, who has just a horrific story of her childhood at Auschwitz. But NYU, following in the footsteps of the Ivy Leagues, as anti-Israel protesters charged toward police with those flares. This happened last night, leading to dozens of arrests. So here to react is Tova Friedman. She's a Holocaust survivor who shares her stories on TikTok with the help of her grandson. She also wrote a New York Times bestseller list. It was #1 for several weeks, The Daughter of Auschwitz. You were 5.5 when you were taken and put in this concentration camp with your mom.
Right.
You were liberated a year later at 6.5, and you remember it all.
A lot.
You were showing me in the commercial break your tattoo on your arm.
Yes.
What did they tell you when they were tattooing your arm?
They told me that I don't have a name. This is my name. And the name was very long, 27,633. And I couldn't remember it, so they tried to teach me to remember it because this was my name from now on.
Your name, you were a number. You were just a
Exactly,
number.
I was a number.
And how painful at 5 and
It
a
was
half to go
quite
through
painful, but I was just fascinated because the woman said to me, if you ever survive, just wear a long sleeve shirt and nobody will know.
Wow. You want people to know. And
I want people to know.
You
Absolutely.
see these protests here in America, anti-Israel protest, anti-Semitic. What is your response, especially?
It is shocking. It is utterly shocking. You know, when I walked out of Auschwitz with my mother, walking through these gates, I said to my thought, I was 6.5, and I was a very adult 6.5, not like a child, you know. And I said, I will never have anybody call me a dirty Jew or anything else again. I am free now. And when I came to America at 11.5, it's like I came to the promised land, and it was just a fabulous experience. And here it is today. I am shocked. I am pained. I'm scared. I'm scared both for America. I'm scared for the Jews, and very painful for our young people. I have two grandchildren in WashU and one in Cornell, and they're scared. Yeah. And I can't imagine. I just can't imagine living through this. It reminds me. Well, I was too young. I wasn't alive then, but I heard about that. Exactly what happened before the Holocaust. And what's shocking most of all is that the professors, some of them, are on board.
What is your message to them who didn't live through the Holocaust? You have all these college students. Some of them are deniers of it. What is your message if they're watching?
You mean the Jews or the non-Jews or
the
all?
Non-Jews, the ones that are protesting and yelling things like "Death to America" or "I am Hamas."
I just want to say that if this isn't contained, if they don't think about it, what is going to be the end product? What is the end product of any hatred and prejudice? It is death to somebody. Could be death to themselves, death to their opponents. Because we didn't stop Hitler. Like, we had a chance during Kristallnacht. We could have stopped it, but nobody did. So I ended up in Auschwitz, and 1.5 million of Jewish children were gassed. That type of behavior and anger and hatred can only end up in tragedy. Tragedy for everybody. Not only tragedy for the Jews, God forbid, tragedy for themselves, because it's going to be a terrible clash. We have to find a way to stop it. You know, I think of it as a virus, or like a cancer. If you don't stop it early, it kills the body.
It metastasizes.
It's going to kill the body.
Tova,
it's killing our country.
It is. Tova, thank you so much. God bless you. I know you have your second Seder dinner tonight, and I hope you enjoy that with your family. Nikki Haley, she put on Instagram, on Passover, a tyrant was told, "Let my people go." The same applies to Hamas today. Thank you so much, Tova.
The tables have turned on President Biden, who now trails Trump by 2 points after Robert F. Kennedy Jr. makes it on the state's ballot.
All right, and that's where Lawrence Jones is having breakfast with friends. Joining him is Michigan gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon. She's got a great podcast, and she's with a great guy. Lawrence, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. So we're on our first state of our 3-state tour of all the swing states. Got Tudor Dixon here. When you look at the polling, Fox News polling, you got Donald Trump right now at 42% here in Michigan, Joe Biden at 40%. But what about the Senate? What about the House? Do you see Republicans being able to take back this state?
I think that's going to be tough. We're going to have to work really hard. We have to get a strong ground game in place. But Trump is always different. When Trump is on the ticket, he lifts up the ticket. So there is a really good chance that Trump winning the state of Michigan will be the answer for the down ticket races. Now, I was talking to you about Chris Christie saying there's not a Trump voter. There is a Trump voter. And the Trump voters didn't come out for me in 22. He wasn't on the ballot. That means this time, these candidates have a huge advantage. They're going to come out, and we want them to vote down ticket. ticket.
So one of the biggest concerns is the issue of abortion. Democrats ran on that issue. We saw this recent ad of Democrats using this as an issue. Let's play a little bit of it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them.
So they're going to run on this issue, and they're going to use fear. What can Republicans do to message this the right way?
I think Donald Trump has done a great job of making Gretchen Whitmer's argument obsolete, and I think that was devastating for her. She is the queen of abortion. She took this issue and she ran with it like crazy in 2022, and she did a great job. You are right. Fear was the best motivator to get people to the polls. I think that ad is so corny. I think people are starting to step away from the idea because they're like, look, Donald Trump has even said that this is going to be a state's issue. States are going to choose. It's on the ballot. In those states where it's on the ballot, people will choose that, and they can choose their candidate independently. That is really going to be hard for Democrats because they can't run on this issue anymore. Republicans on this issue, they need to understand that we can do things to provide families what they need to reduce abortions. Since the Dobbs decision, abortions have been the highest they've ever been in the United States of America. So Republicans need to understand there are more than one way to skin a cat in this issue. You have got to come around families and provide ways to keep babies, to make it easier to adopt, to give families a chance rather than allow these Democrats to just railroad people into fear and force them into abortion.
It's such a good point. And do you think that there's something that you could have done differently in your race regarding that issue on the ballot?
You know, I go back and forth so many times and like Monday morning quarterback my race. I mean, sure, I think if there were an alternative, then potentially people would have changed their minds. But I don't think we can go back. I think we have to learn from it and move forward.
Such a good powerful. Tudor Dixon, thank you so much for joining us.
To Ainsley's point, Brian, yeah, the president, and people are characterizing it as a very fine people moment, or people on both sides. He said, yeah, you know, I've set up a center to combat anti-Semitism, but I'm upset that people don't understand the cause of the Palestinians. He's seemingly trying to play it both ways.
Well, I'll do this. Can you imagine me doing a talking point like this? What do you want? Is anti-Semitism a problem? Well, I don't know. Is it? Yeah, it's anti-Semitism. It's really bad. I got to go. What's happening? Yeah, there's good people. There's good Palestinians. Got to run. That would be great. That's how he's running our country. He's not talking to us. He won't give a speech. He won't give an interview. He won't set up a policy. You got to scream at him in the woods to get a ridiculous, hardly audible comment.
I'll tell you why. It's because he doesn't want to answer the question. When he does, he wants to play both sides now because he saw what happened where you are, Lawrence. And he knows he needs
well,
that
that's
state.
Exactly right. Ainsley, you're so right. You hit the nail on the head. He's worried about the votes here in Michigan. It's the population. It's the number one area for the air vote. And so a lot of them voted non-committed to send a message to Joe Biden. Let's see what the folks here in Michigan have to say about that. Hello. Let's talk with some veterans. When you see what happened here in Dearborn, the chant, Death to America, and you have AOC, the President of the United States, that haven't addressed the matter. They did release a statement, but they haven't taken it on. What runs through your mind?
It runs through my mind that our government, our leaders of this country are supporting the wrong agenda. Our agenda should be to be supportive of America, not of Hamas, not of people that go and murder babies and women, and then we stand behind it. We should not have anybody in our government that says we support that. We shouldn't have our students here supporting our students, giving them free things in their tuition or education so they can stand out and support a country that wants to kill mothers and women and say death to Jews. That's what Hitler did. Hitler said death to Jews. We went and fought for that. Our people gave their lives for our freedom of this country.
Such a good point. Sir, I want to go to you, and he hits the nail on the head. He talks about that this is what we fought for. We fought against this. When you see American students on college campuses, when you see folks in Dearborn, Michigan saying death to America, what do you want to say to them?
I'm a veteran and I love this country, and it's just appalling what's going on. Back in my day during the Vietnam War, they didn't tolerate this stuff. There was tear gas and they put it down. I don't know what's wrong with our government anymore. And yeah, it's just appalling what's going on. They shouldn't allow it. Our January 6 people are in prison for literally nothing, and these people can get away with that and shout death to America when these prisoners that are in Washington, D.C., they sing the national anthem every day. They're patriotic. They love this country. It's just the justice system is backwards.
What do you think about this, ma'am? The fact that our young people, some of them, it appears like they've been radicalized.
They have been, and I've had children, and they have grown up in this country. We have all been incredibly blessed, and so it is just real. It's a real shame how our country, our children have changed, their motives, their ideas. We certainly need the Lord to get back to where we need to be.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And guys, this is a theme that we continue to hear. Remember, this is the epicenter of those chants, and the population for Arab Americans is the most here in Michigan. Where this state is going to go, you see Joe Biden already changing his policy based on that uncommitted voter, guys. I'll send it back to you in New York.
All right, outrage erupting as in West Virginia, a transgender middle schooler dominated the shot put competition. So girls from the rival school, what they did is they walked off in protest as 13-year-old Becky Pepper Jackson won the meet by over 3 feet. This is just days after a federal appeals court ruled against West Virginia's 2021 Save Women's in Sports Act, which allowed Pepper Jackson to compete as a girl. Joining us now is host of Outkick the Morning on Outkick.com. It's Charlie Arnold. Charlie, great to see you this morning. Outrageous. I mean, once again, by the way, you want to see how outrageous? Just take a look at the shot put meet results. The transgender student threw it 32 feet 9 inches. The closest competitor, female, was 29 feet 6 inches. But they all refused to kind of meet the acknowledgement that this Becky Pepper Johnson was the winner. And I think in the end, this is the only thing, not the court, not the administration. This is the only thing that's going to, reintroduce sanity. Women standing up.
Yeah, and it's really upsetting that these middle school girls have to forfeit their opportunities in order to take a stand. I mean, that takes a lot of courage, especially at that age, but they're doing this for the greater good. It's not just for themselves. I mean, if I think back to when I was an athlete, I would want nothing more to compete in every single meet that I was able to. These girls decided, you know what, we want to make sure that people are paying attention. This is the only way, and the only way for, I think, the government to really start paying attention, and especially that federal appeals court that just struck down the law in West Virginia that bans transgender athletes from competing in female sports. It's the only way they're going to start saying, okay, maybe we are doing something incorrectly here.
I'm not quite as optimistic. I don't think the court's going to notice the impacts on real life. They're caught up in both.
I'm just saying if more girls start to do this, Will, it's going to take a whole lot more than just these 5 athletes in this one circumstance.
The problem is the courts follow the Biden administration. They follow Title IX, and the whole thing's driven now by identity politics. And somehow gender has superseded women, which some have noticed. Angel Reese, by the way, I think she went 9th in the WNBA draft from LSU. She tweeted, "Protect young women in sports." Now, not a lot of explanation beyond that. But, that's an example. If that is about, men invading women's sports, that's an example of what is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angel Reese has a massive platform. Again, we don't know what direction she necessarily meant this post to go in, whether or not she was requesting for people to start listening up to keep trans athletes out of women's sports, or she was meaning something just a little bit more fluffy instead. But the fact remains is people are starting to notice. This conversation is growing even louder. And I commend every single athlete, whether they are a young girl, whether they are a full-grown adult athlete, for taking a stand, because it truly does take a lot of courage at this point in time, because I know that every time, for example, even I have opened my mouth, I get called the worst names in the world, and it's a horrible thing, but you know that you're doing something for the greater good, and that's what matters right now.
schizophrenic absurdity of our leaders, the Biden administration, allowing men to invade women's sports. And Kamala Harris, I don't know if you saw this, Charlie, has now decided that the cause she would like to take up is Caitlin Clark's pay salary in the WNBA as compared to NBA. And her fight there is now not against gender, but it's about simple economics. But this is the fight of our leaders in America. Absurd. By the way, you can catch Charlie on Outkick the Morning every weekday, 8 a.m. Just go over to Outkick.com and watch Outkick the Morning. Thank you, Charlie.
Let's break down where these protests are coming from, who is funding them, where they started, and actually where the dollars are going. All right, well, let's begin. First off, they're everywhere.
And they're everywhere, Brian, but they're often under one banner. This is what to know behind these protests you're seeing. On-campus organization, Students for Justice in Palestine. Brian, it's basically behind most of the major campus protests we've seen. And as I pointed out, as I mentioned, it's everywhere. It's all across the country.
Yeah, you got 200 plus chapters, various sizes, smaller ones over in Tufts, smaller ones over in Emerson, but bigger in the Ivy League schools. How do they communicate? You could guess it. They go through the cell phone, go through text messages, go through certain sites. And these are some of the colleges that have gotten our attention.
Yeah, these are the notable chapters. These are the ones we're covering in the news right now. They're making the most noise, you know, Berkeley, NYU, Yale, Columbia. But again, I think the important point is 200 plus chapters across the country for Students for Justice in Palestine.
So they've been there. They've been simmering underneath, waiting since October 7th. There's been a lot of talk about the pro-Israel because of the massacre they suffered. But believe it or not, if you go on TikTok, there are more things Stand With Palestine from October 7th, even the following week, than there was Stand With Israel.
So the big question is, well, who's behind Students for Justice in Palestine? Well, here are some of the groups funding that organization. This Westpac stands for Westchester Foundation, headed by an anti-Zionist ex-Orthodox Jew. And you can see they sponsor, Brian, all these different elements of SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine.
And we've seen these groups out and about. We've seen them with signs, and we've seen some of their chants in terms of what are their resources when they go to jail? What are their resources when they get kicked off campus? Like Congresswoman Omar's daughter. This is where they can go. These are where a lot of the funding is.
Yeah, they go to A-15 bail, legal defense fund. They're not only organizing, putting it together, but what happens to you if you're arrested at the protest.
Yeah, this isn't, Mom, I got drunk last night, I'm in prison, I got a drunk driving ticket. They know exactly where to go when they get themselves in trouble, and they know exactly their rights when they get themselves on campus. And this leads to this.
Other funding, student governments, talking about how the protest fund is self-funded, American Muslims for Palestine. A lot of this is opaque stuff.
Student governments, when I was in college, they used to pick out stand-up comedians and when to appear and what venue to go. They're doing protests. Now, this might be the most important wall.
Well, this is off-campus stuff. So Students for Justice for Palestine, that's on-campus student organizations. Then you got stuff that's happening off of campus, like American Muslims for Palestine, the parent organization, informally, of SJP.
Right, and you see a lot of these lecturers hop on campus. They got to get paid. That's where the money comes from. We see a lot of their antics, like on Monday was El-Quds Day. They stopped the Golden Gate Bridge. They maybe blocked traffic in your tunnel, in your area, to make what the point? That they're powerful, that they have something to say. And El-Quds, not a positive organization.
Well, tell everybody, what is Al-Quds a reference of?
They're the outgrowth of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Al-Quds force is the one that kills our people in Iraq and tries to bomb them out in Syria as late as 2 days ago.
So named after Al-Quds, the Al-Quds Committee is the one, for example, the protest you heard, Death to America chants. That's this group, who also has big plans come this summer.
The worst is yet to come for the DNC. In Chicago, plans are already in place to create chaos in the streets, inside or out. And they're not pro-Republican. They're just anti-Democratic Party unless they change and become pro-Palestinian.
So that's the AstroTurf behind a lot of these protests that you see that look like students. And it does attract students, but this is the funding, the organization behind these student protests across campus.
Happening today, former President Trump will be back in court for day 6 of his New York trial. First up, a hearing on whether Trump will be held in contempt Prosecutors accusing him of violating his gag order 10 times. Following that, ex-publisher of the National Enquirer, David Pecker, will be back on the stand to testify on the so-called catch and kill scheme, which is not illegal, where the tabloid paid to suppress negative stories about Trump. Here to react, Fox News editor Carrie Kupak-Urban. Before we talk about the gag order and the hearing for a couple hours today, Carrie, what was your big takeaway from yesterday as the prosecution and defense had their opening statements?
Well, one, I was startled to see that the former number 3 of the Department of Justice was the one presenting opening arguments for Alvin Bragg's case yesterday. Very surprising, as we've discussed. That's a very coveted spot at the Department of Justice. It's one that typically people take and then go on to become a corporate bigwig. And so for this particular man to have that job and then go and work for Alvin Bragg and then be presenting opening arguments right from Biden's DOJ to the courtroom in New York City was quite something. The other point that stuck out to me was the defense kept making, which was that NDAs, and you just said this, Brian, earlier, are not illegal. Compensation for NDAs are not illegal. And then lastly, the prosecution did focus a lot on David Pecker, who we'll be hearing from today on the stand. But in fact, he is not exactly part of this case because this case focuses on Stormy Daniels, and he had much more to do with Karen McDougal. They're using him to paint a picture of Trump's general mindset, but it's actually not specific to the case before them.
Right. I have to tell everyone the reason why I was so brilliant in my talking point is because I talked to Carrie before the show, and she helped me with it. So when you just to outline this, the reason why you brought that up about Matt Colangelo, it makes no sense to you because he's at this prominent position at the Justice Department. He leaves it to go work this New York case, and yet they don't care about the perception that Trump keeps saying this is a Biden instigated trial. And they go, it's absolutely not, and everyone says it's unfounded. But when Matt Colangelo leaves the Justice Department of Joe Biden and goes and takes a job beneath him, leading the investigation, the prosecution of Donald Trump, that is saying, I don't care about perceptions. I'm just going for it.
Yeah, I agree. And objectively, it's a career downgrade. For instance, the person, my colleague who held that position when I was at DOJ, she's now a top person at Walmart. Rudy Giuliani, when he held that position in the early 1980s, he went on to head SDNY. So people typically go up, not down.
Gotcha.
So objectively, to take this kind of career downgrade, that means it's pretty personal. You're a true believer.
So let's talk about David Pecker. He's there because could be part of a plea deal. He's there because he was subpoenaed. He was taking a lot of questioning. Next thing you know, he's a state's witness. Do you, as a defense attorney, say, hey, David Pecker, why are you here? Are you here? Did you cut a deal in order to testify against Donald Trump? Does that come up? Is that allowed?
Well, they did give him immunity, to your point, and that's why we know what we know now. And apparently he told Trump years ago that he'd be his eyes and ears on the campaign. He said he would keep his ears open for bad stories potentially about him and then help to kill them, which is not illegal. Now, look, does it feel dirty and sleazy to some extent? Sure. I mean, it's the National Enquirer. But also, one thing, Brian, that we used to contend with all the time when I was at DOJ, people would come to Bill Barr and say to him, I want to prosecute this person and this person, typically fan favorites of the right. And Bill Barr would also always ask two very simple questions. What is the crime and what is the evidence? Just because something feels dirty doesn't make it illegal. And people need to keep that in mind in this case.
And Karen McDougal will be on the stand today. We expect if David Pecker wraps up. They only have till 11 and 2. Carrie, thanks so much. She was in there in the overflow room, which she told me is even better than being in court because you can see the whole thing. Thanks, Carrie.
A transgender athlete taking home first place in a middle school girls' shot put event, beating out her competitors by more than 3 feet.
Why is that a story? Well, girls from a rival school even protesting the event by refusing to throw. The track meet came just days after a federal appeals court ruled that the 13-year-old couldn't be banned from girls' sports.
So here with reaction is celebrity fitness trainer Jillian Michaels. Good morning, Jillian.
Hi, guys. Good morning. How are you?
Good. So what do you think about this story? I mean, it seems to validate common sense.
Okay. You've got two competing goals in sports, right? One is inclusion, which everybody can understand and get on board with. However, the second goal that's in direct opposition with inclusion in this instance is going to be a fair competition. And if that's your priority, if your overriding priority is going to be fairness over inclusion, you got to turn to the data. And the data irrefutably shows that biological males are 10 to 30% stronger, faster, have better endurance, better aerobic capacity across the board.
Even if, like this child who went through the puberty blockers and takes estrogen, has been doing that since elementary school.
Again, if we defer to the studies, and I sent several to your producers, which maybe they can put on the homepage, they show that even on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, the decrease in physical performance is, quote, trivial. That's what the data says. And to give you an example, if you look at a biological male, transgender female, with grip strength in conjunction with a biological female transgender male, okay, so both of them are on blockers and cross-sex hormones. The transgender female, the biological male's grip strength, was 17% greater than the female on testosterone and puberty blockers.
Yeah, and this, when you talk about contact sports, you talk about safety, you're talking about volleyball, you're talking about soccer. I mean, this is out of control. I want to also talk about another area of your expertise, and that's obesity. You're not, but you help people slim down. Do you think this should be an election issue?
Absolutely, but it never has been, because what it requires is policy change. And you're never going to get the policy change because big food, big pharma, and big insurance have such powerful lobbies. That's the true problem.
They don't have there's no push to purify food and get some of the sugar and additives out?
I don't mean to laugh. You know who's fantastic at really digging in on this is a gentleman by the name of Callie Means. I see him on Fox quite often, actually. And he's a Harvard Business School grad. He was a lobbyist for big food and big pharma. And he can break down all the ways the system is broken. But to make real, powerful, efficacious change, you've got to change funding in politics. You just do. You got to get rid of Citizens United. Otherwise, in my line of work, I don't see any hope.
If you've ever been to Italy, you eat the food there and you don't gain any weight. You come here to America. What's the difference? What are we doing here?
Oh my gosh. There are so many different ingredients in the food here that isn't allowed in the UK, in the EU, in Canada. Just a bottle of ketchup will have completely different ingredients. So beyond, obviously, the fact that the system is set up to kind of for failure, right, to make us overweight. You know, they get us coming, they get us going. So the food companies make money on us getting overweight, and the pharmaceutical companies make money on treating the diseases associated with obesity. We do have self-agency, and that's the message that gets shut down constantly. We can opt out. It isn't more expensive to not drink the soda.
Of good food that's good for you.
Yeah, or you just eat less of the bad stuff, and in reality, that does work. Again, all the data shows us that while the food may not be ideal, if you eat less of it, all the health benefits associated with weight loss will be there for you.
I wish my ancestors did not leave Italy. It would be a lot better, it'd be a lot healthier.
You look like you're doing well, though. You look like you're doing okay.
See?
We wouldn't have heard all your wonderful stories about your grandfather that had the eyeglass store, or your other uncle that
we have a little problem here.
His uncle invented camouflage.
We definitely need a vacation.
Well, America would not have camouflage if it were not for your family.
That's what I'm saying.
Who knew?
In summary, Jillian, boys are stronger than girls on average, and if you make wise choices eating, you have less a chance of being obese.
100%. Common sense.
It's all in the Keeping It Real podcast. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Jillian.
We end on a high note.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Jillian.
In the soft embrace of morning light, rocky and rugged, hopeful inside, a whisper of promise, a sense so sweet, reviving energy with every heartbeat. Down the stairs with grace, favorite moment, cherished embrace. Each sip, a dance of enchantment, caffeine's elixir, a daily enchantment. Morning sun, a gentle caress. the kitchen hums a quiet tune. As dreams unfold, not too soon. Pouring the elixir, stories take flight. In the world of coffee, my spirit alights. I'm uncradled, a vessel of tales. Each sip, a dialogue as morning unveils. Bitterness, a new world of tales. As the day unfolds, a caffeinated tale. In morning symphony, where moments prevail. Coffee, my companion in the sunrise quest. In the ritual of morning, my eternal zest. The world awakens, a canvas so bright. In the palette of dawn, a captivating sight. A dance of flavors, a morning trance. In the world of coffee, life's sweet romance.